everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I think most of you would really appreciate. Question and answers about WGU and student teaching, the student teaching program at specifically WGU. Before I get started though, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. This question, it was interesting, but it's a valid question. How much independent student teaching time will you have? It is expected that I have mentioned that you teach for at least 2 weeks. Some of my instructors have said that I don't have to teach for that long, but I really do it anyway because the more teaching experience that I get, the better that I do on observations, especially. And I don't recommend that you do an observation the first time that you teach. Really get some practice in there. So I teach when I am doing my student teaching, I tend to teach all day to students, whether that's a particular subject area or I do more than one of subject areas. Teaching all day can really benefit you because the more practice that you get, the more likely that you're going to succeed as a new teacher, the more likely that you can create and adapt your own teaching style, and the better that you will do on those observations that you have to do to pass the WGU Student Teaching program. So it is really up to you as to how much independent student teaching time you want to have. I do at least recommend at least a month, and I taught all day, every day. At least 5 school days a week. And I really had a lot more fun. I engaged with the curriculum. I created lesson plans, not WGU lesson plans. I created my own lesson plans. The only time I ever created WGU lesson plans with that template was to submit for my observations. But yes, I do recommend that you get as much experience student teaching as possible. The lesson plan format, as I mentioned, is the WGU lesson plan format. Now, this is only required when you submit for your WGU observations. Like I said, when I was student teaching in those placements, I really just made my own lesson plan. I can even include a template down for you if you're interested to see what I did when I had to full-time student teach when I wasn't being observed and just kind of gaining practice. The role that you have to communicate with parents, anything that you do is gold. Again, this really gives you practice for when you have to eventually reach out to parents as a full-time certified teacher or licensed teacher. What I did is that I introduced myself to the teacher, to the students, and to the parents with, meet the student teacher. And I also had to have written video permission to video record my students when I was doing those observations. So any way that you can kind of communicate to parents is awesome. Teacher contract time is when the teachers get there and when the teachers kind of leave. I tend to get there before school officially opens, and I kind of leave a little bit before teachers do, maybe about 10 minutes before they leave. But it's really up to you. I typically stay there all day. Now, I do have a long planning period. I could leave, but I choose not to because, one, I'm just trying to get more experience, and two, I have a big chunk of time to plan my lessons to where when I go home, I don't have to do them so much. So it's really up to you. WGU kind of requires and kind of really wants you to stay all day, every day if you possibly can. So your responsibilities as a student teacher, you have to remember that you have to show up there on time. You are responsible for pulling out and creating lesson plans, whether you're teaching while being observed or teaching without being observed. You are responsible for interacting with the mentor teacher or the placement teacher that you're with. You're responsible for being professional, having a code of ethics. You are responsible for sometimes even grading papers, especially the activities that you kind of pull out and give to students. Sometimes you're even responsible for like making the digital materials for your lessons. Like I have to create PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. So you are responsible for a lot of things. You're basically responsible for things that a normal teacher would, except you aren't required um, to do things that the employee teacher, the certified teacher, is supposed to do. But you are responsible for the way you dress, how you interact with students. But WGU does go through this with you before you even start student teaching. So before you even enter a classroom, you will know what is expected of you. Observation meetings, I haven't had one that's been long. Typically, they're like 30 minutes tops. It's like a phone call with your mentor or your advisor. It's really not that long. For my midterm, I remember it being just at least 30, 45 minutes, not very long at all. But especially for the observation meetings, they're not that long at all. And they typically take place a couple days before your actual observation, and then the post ones take place within that same day or a few days after your observation. So questions about WGU now. When should you take the Praxis exams? So the Praxis Core, I highly recommend that you wait to take those until you have finished all your general courses. For example, the Praxis Math Core, recommend that you wait to take that until after you finish all your math courses for WGU, because everything that they teach will be included in that exam. I've also highly recommend that you don't take all the Praxis exams at once, because the more that you focus on just one particular test, the more likely that you're going to pass and you don't have to retake it again. And you can really hone in on that particular test and really focus on the skills that that are needed and required to pass that test. Any other Praxis exams that are required for you to become a teacher in your state, I highly recommend that you wait to do those after you take your methods courses. Really right before you start student teaching is when I really took mine. And I highly recommend that as well, because again, everything that was taught to me, I was able to learn through all of my WG courses as well. I believe it's 3 times you can take an OA for free. After that, I think there's a fee charge. I've never had to take an OA for that many times or a 4th time, but everybody's different. So if something is not working for you and you have to retake an OA, please reach out to your instructor and your mentor, because they are there to help you. They want to help you succeed. Even if the class or the course feels daunting, just know that you have lots of support for you. And there's plenty of student resources in the academic resource center that you can really be a part of and even get some tutoring and professional help. So don't feel like that you're alone in this struggle that you can't pass an OA. Even though the instructors do not make the OAs, an evaluation team does. Know that you are not alone and that you will pass no matter how many times it takes. But I do believe after the 3rd time, and you have to take it a 4th time, I do believe there is a small fee with that. So with the proctored exam, yes, someone will be watching you. And I know some people have been a little bit on edge about that, but if you think about it, if you were in any other university, you would still be watched. The platform that they use, although it's changed from the last time I did the video on proctored exams, it is still very secure, just as much as the other one was. So don't feel like someone's invading your privacy or getting data on you. None of that is happening. You will get to access the orientation course at WGU as soon as you start at WGU. You cannot, it's not like other universities where you do the orientation and before you even like your first day begins when you start the orientation. It does take, I believe it took me like all day for mine. That's because I just wanted to finish it in one day, but you can always pause and then come back to it later, which is quite nice. Very different from other universities. But you can't access it until you officially become a student, until you officially kind of start on the 1st of a particular month. A proctored exam means that it's an online exam, first off. You have to have a camera because someone will be watching you, as I mentioned, making sure that you're taking the test the right way and that you are being ethical about it. You're not cheating or doing anything like that, that you're not having problems, that everything is going smoothly when you take your exam. And I have made a video on this that goes into much detail about what you can expect from a proctored exam. Now, the video that I used to make that video, or the information that I gave to make that video, they do use a different system now, but it's very similar to the one that I talk about in that video. I will post it down below if you are interested in seeing that. As I mentioned earlier, your instructors do not make the OAs, the objective assessments, the exams for your courses like other universities do. The OAs are completely made by an evaluation team, very similar to the evaluation team that kind of grades your performance assessments or your PAs. The practice exams or the pre-assessments, they're similar to the OAs. I have found that the pre-assessments that I would take had similar questions on the OAs themselves. That's not always the case, so be prepared for different kind of questions. Don't just rely heavily on the pre-assessment. Make sure that you continue to study as much as possible throughout the material that you had to learn for that course, because chances are there may be a question that wasn't on the pre-assessment that is on the OA. Anything that I kind of mentioned about student teaching or OAs or whatever, I will definitely link below down in the description. That kind of goes into more detail, especially if you have more questions about this. But I really enjoyed getting to know all y'all's questions, and I hope I really answered them as thoroughly as I can. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye.